Hello everyone and welcome to the last Valentine's Day card series video. I thought I would end by making a fun shaker card. So I have my fired brick distress ink and a piece of watercolor cardstock that I cut down to 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. And I'm just working on my nonstick craft sheet. So I added a little bit of ink to my craft sheet and then I'm spritzing it with water. And then I'm just going to take a regular old paintbrush from the craft store and just color on my watercolor piece. I'm just going back and forth because I want it to be a really watercolored look, and it's just one color, so it's really simple. And I'm not going off the edges with this one, I'm just kind of coloring right in the middle. I want really loose edges. I don't want any straight lines or anything like that. So once I finished doing that, I went ahead and dried that with my heat tool. You can let it dry just with air, but I don't have any patience, so I dried that with my heat tool. And then I'm taking my Lawn Fawn heart dies. These are the dies that I used in my video the other day. So I have the 3 largest sizes, and I'm going to line those up right in the center. So I'm going to start with the bottom one and just tape that down with a little bit of washi tape and then work my way up. So then I will center the middle size and then tape that one down and then center the top one and then tape that one down. And then I'll go ahead and run that through my Cuttlebug so that it die cuts all of those hearts out. And then this is going to be my shaker part. So the hearts are going to be clear because I'm going to add acetate behind that later. And then that will be the part that you see the sequins through. Alright, so I'm running that right through my Cuttlebug and it'll die cut those hearts out. And it's similar to the way we did it the other day. We're not using the hearts, so you can save those for a different project. I'm just going to pop them all on out of there. And then I am going to add one more step to this watercolor piece. I have the Simon Says stamp. It's a little chevron stencil. They're little dots that are in a chevron shape. I'm going to just lay that over my watercolor piece and then spray it with my mister. And this is just going to create a little bit of pattern and texture on the watercolor on my distress ink. And I just took my towel and I'm laying that over the top of it to pick up all the excess water. And because the distress ink reacts with water, you're going to see that pattern on there. So I went ahead and flipped it over and I have a piece of clear acetate. And I'm just adding a little bit of liquid adhesive all around the edges. And then a little bit in between the hearts. You want to make sure you don't get too much because you don't want it to squirt through the hearts or get on the any part of the rest of the card. Otherwise it'll be sticky and your sequins might stick to it. So then I'm taking a piece of pattern paper. This is from the My Mind's Eye Love Me 6x6 paper pad. And it's a red and kind of pink colored hexagon shape, so it looks a little bit like honeycomb, which is going to go with my stamps that I'm going to be using. Alright, so now it's time for the foam shaker part. I've done shaker cards a few different ways, so you can check out the other shaker card videos that I've made. But for this one, I'm just taking a piece of craft foam that you get from Michael's or anywhere like that. It's really cheap. And I am just cutting so that there's going to be a little border. Now, this by no means is perfect. The lines are not straight. If you have the rectangle dies, you can use those, but this works just as well, and then you don't have to spend money on the dies. So I'm just adding my glue to that. Just a thin line of the Tombow Mono Multi Glue. And then I'll stick that right down on top of my pattern paper right in the center. This pattern paper is smaller than my watercolor piece. That way the edges are not going to show through or the sides of the watercolor piece. You won't be able to see it. Alright, so moving on, I'm taking this stamp set from Paper Smooches and I have a piece of Coordination's 110-pound cardstock. And I'm stamping the two smaller bumblebees up there, and I'm stamping those with my Tuxedo Black Memento ink. And then I will take my heat tool and just make sure that those are completely dried before I start coloring them in with my Copic markers. Otherwise, they do smear a little bit. And I'm just doing some really super simple Copic coloring. I'm using the Y13, and you could use any color medium for this part just because I just really wanted the color in there. You could use colored pencils or anything. I'm not doing any shading or blending or anything like that. And then for the wings, I'm using the B00. I'm just filling those in, not coloring them perfectly by any means. And then I went ahead and fussy cut them out, leaving the white border. Alright, so now I have my piece with the die cuts and the watercolor. And I'm going to stamp the sentiment. It's the little tiny love. And I'm stamping this right onto the larger heart, the acetate. So I'm using my StazOn white ink because that works on acetate. If you used a dye or pigment ink, it's not going to dry on there. So you want to use StazOn because that dries and then it won't smear. And then I'm going to move on and add my sequins to the shaker part. So I have some red sequins and then some smaller white sequins. I'm just making sure that they're kind of flat in there because sometimes if they are stacked up on top of each other, then they get stuck and they don't move. So I just wanted to make sure that they were all flat and there weren't too many stacked on top of each other. And then I'm going to go ahead and put some glue all along the foam part. And then I'm going to add my watercolor piece right on top of that. So I just want to make sure that the foam is not sticking out by any of the hearts so you don't see that at all. And then I went ahead and pressed that down, and you want to make sure that this is completely dry before you flip it over and do this part. I'm going to be completely honest, you can see it moving. I did not wait long enough and it didn't work. The sequins started falling out and I had to kind of fix my card. So now I'm adding it onto a white A2 size card base. And I know that this card has a lot of steps and it seems like a lot, but if you just kind of follow it slowly, it works, and it worked the best way for me to do it in this order. Alright, so then I have my two bumblebees, and I'm just going to add some 3D foam squares to the back of those. These are the small foam squares from Best Creation. And I'm just adding 3 to the back of each one, and then I can peel off the backings to those. And then I'm going to stick one on each side of the middle heart, a little bit between the middle and the largest heart. Alright, so then I decided to add a few more sequins to the front. I have the red and the smaller white sequins. And I'm just kind of scattering those on each side. And all of the supplies I do use on this card will be linked below, so if you're interested in them, you can check them out down there. And I just went ahead and adhered them with some Tombow Mono Multi Glue. And then one last step, I wanted to add some sparkle to the wings of the bees. So I'm using my clear Wink of Stella glitter pen and just going over the bees' wings. And this just really makes it sparkle and shine. And I hadn't used my Wink of Stella pen for a while, so I had to kind of push it and make the glitter come to the tip because it was not working really well. And then that is my finished card for today. So you can see the sequins in there shaking and the shimmer on the card. So thank you so much for watching. If you're not a subscriber, go ahead and subscribe if you want to see more videos, and then I will see you back here next time.